Hi, my name is Gabe Suarez. In this video, we're going to present a class that we've taught to military personnel, police officers, and private citizens all over the world. It's called Close Range Gunfighting. It has its basis to a certain degree in the ideas and concepts of my good friend Jeff Cooper, but it has evolved beyond that. We've added a good bit of martial arts concepts, because that is my background before I ever touched a gun. We've also added a good amount of information that we learned through practical experience. I was blessed with the opportunity to deploy some of these techniques when I worked in law enforcement, and I've arrived at some conclusions and some methods of training which will prepare you better when the day comes that you have to fight for your life. One of the things that you'll find that's different in what we do here in these videos from perhaps what you're accustomed to is that we try to replicate the real world as much as possible. In most square ranges, you'll find that there is a shooting area and there's a 180-degree line and so on and so forth, and there's another side that's safe, and you have certain movement restrictions. You can't do this, you can't do that. At the beginning level, that may be important, but as we're progressing beyond the basic level, we need to take the training environment and we need to replicate as close as possible the real world that we're going to be operating in. The real world is a 360-degree environment, and downrange is not always right in front of you. Downrange may be to the side or to the rear. As well, the real world is a two-way range. Rounds are coming in toward you as well, and we replicate that by using force-on-force technology. We have taught this, as I said, many different places, and usually the comment that we get is, well, how come we haven't been doing this all along? Well, hopefully after viewing this tape, these techniques and these concepts will become a lot more widespread than they are now. Also, we have received a lot of after-action reports from our students, both here and overseas, that have been tested by bad guys in the real world, and they've done very well. They've not only survived, but as we seek to do, they have won the confrontation using the techniques that are contained in these videos. I present these ideas to you not as a doctrine per se, but rather some useful things that will, I suspect, revolutionize the way you look at training, revolutionize the way you work on the square range, and revolutionize the way you organize your practice. So with that in mind, let's get to work. All right, the first thing we need to talk about is safety. There are 4 rules in the industry that are commonplace. We're going to discuss those, and we have a little bit of maybe a different slant to them. First thing we need to understand is what these are for. All right? There are those that will come up with all sorts of different reasons why we carry these, but the bottom line is they're for killing. If you point this at a bad guy and he surrenders because he's afraid of being killed. That being the case, they're dangerous implements, and we have to handle them as such. The first rule that we need to keep in mind is that we want to treat all firearms as if they were loaded all the time. If we need to unload them for whatever reason, we take care of that administratively, but we always begin with the assumption that they're loaded and ready to go. Rule number 2, don't let your muzzle cover anything you're not willing to destroy. Specifically, what we need to consider is that we don't want to be careless with the muzzle. What this rule is primarily focused on is carelessness in the training environment. I'm sure that all of you in your basic training remember at some point you have somebody in the class that has some sort of a problem with the pistol, some sort of malfunction, and he'll turn around and sweep everybody in the class. We don't want to do that, obviously. We don't want to be careless with the gun muzzle. But by the same token, we don't want to be so focused on this gun muzzle issue that we forget that we are talking about getting in a confrontation with someone. You normally sweep parts of your body with the muzzle all the time. For example, this holster that I'm carrying, it's a traditional strong sight hip holster. And it's intended for concealment, holds the gun up tight up against the body. As I draw my pistol, I'm sweeping my leg and my foot, and on the way back I'm doing the same thing. It's impossible to not do that unless you're going to carry a holster that sticks out 3 feet away from your body. All right? The idea is we understand this is going to happen. Let's be careful about it. All right? Rule number 3, keep your finger off the trigger until you've made a conscious decision to shoot. That means that when the pistol is in your hand in some sort of administrative ready position, or you're manipulating the weapon, or whatever the case is, you notice that my trigger finger is indexed along the frame. It's nowhere near the trigger. I like to use this index point as a reference point because it's easier to remember to keep my finger on the index point instead of letting it float out here somewhere not on the trigger. If I've made a conscious decision to shoot, my adversary is in front of me and so on, I can put my finger on the trigger, but not at any other time. It's just a matter of safety. And the final thing is be sure of your target and what's beyond it. Generally in the training environment, we have things that are designated as targets, and we have some sort of a safe background and so on and so forth. So predominantly we're concerned about the background in a real-world situation, a real-world gunfight. Where things are not as clear and it's more of a confusing situation. You want to be sure that the area behind your adversary is as clear as it can be, and if it's not, you move to a position where it would be clear. And also you want to be sure that the thing that you're shooting at is in fact your adversary and not anything else. Those are the 4 safety rules. We use them in training, we use them in everyday life, and observing them will keep you safe and it'll keep your environment safe. Okay, let's talk about basics. There's 7 fundamentals of marksmanship, and we need to discuss them. We'll be making modifications to them as we go along in this course, but we need to start with an understanding of them. The first thing is grip. How do you grip the pistol? Well, there's a lot of different ways to grip the pistol, a lot of different schools of thought. I'll tell you what I think works best. We want to make sure that we grip the pistol up into this area, the tang of the pistol, as high as possible. I like to keep my thumbs up high because it gives me a better index and control of the pistol. You notice that the trigger guard is up against my middle finger. Now, sometimes we have to fire one-handed. This is how we'll fire when we fire one-handed. When we need to fire two-handed, the support hand is going to come up right underneath and alongside. Now, you notice that both my thumbs are pointed straight alongside the frame. This is going to help me index the pistol on target a lot faster than any other types of grips. The second thing is the issue of stance, the second fundamental. Now, there are so many different schools of thought, so many different ideas, so many different names for stances and so on. We don't need to get anywhere near that complicated. Think right now, if you had an adversary standing in front of you, nice big monster guy, and he was going to kick your butt, and you couldn't run away and you didn't have your gun with you, how would you be standing? You'd be taking some sort of an athletic fighting stance, wouldn't you? Well, this is what we need to do here. What we're talking about basically is one foot is going to be slightly forward, the other foot's going to be slightly to the rear. Your knees are going to be slightly bent, and you're going to be in a position where you could move if you had to, you could attack if you had to, you could fight from here. Your stance needs to have three things. It needs to have balance, it needs to have the capability for movement, and it's got to be stable enough that if you began with a hand-to-hand fight or a clash, that you wouldn't wind up on the ground. If you have those three things, it doesn't matter what your stance looks like or what you call it or what label you put on it, that will work for you. The third fundamental is sight alignment, or as I like to call it, gun alignment, getting the gun pointed on target. Now, the third fundamental is very dependent on the first two. If you have a proper fighting stance here that you can move from, and you've got good balance and stability, and you've got a proper grip on the pistol, you will naturally align that weapon on target using your body index and your hand-eye coordination. Fundamental point. Your body is what aligns the gun on target, not the sights, not anything else. Your grip and your stance. Sometimes that's enough. If we had an adversary that was 3 feet away, let's say, you don't really need to worry about your sight alignment or any of these other issues. But when we're learning the fundamentals, we need to learn perfection first and then step away from perfection as needed. Let's talk about sight alignment. Sight alignment is a condition visually that you can see where your front sight is level with the rear sight. In other words, the top of the front sight is level with the top of the rear sight. And you can see equal amount of light on either side of the front sight as you're looking through the rear sight. That designates perfect sight alignment. If we need to take a shot, let's say 25 yards away or something of that nature, that would be the type of sight alignment that we need. Now, the next fundamental, sight picture. Sight picture takes that sight alignment that we've created and superimposes it on the target or the spot on the target that you want to hit. We end up with 3 points in space. We end up with the target, the front sight, and the rear sight, and we're trying to keep them all in relative alignment. It's hard to do because the human eye only focuses on one thing at a time, or can only focus on one thing at a time. If we focus on the front sight as the midpoint of the three, we can keep the other two in relative alignment, the target in relative alignment and the rear sight in relative alignment, but our visual focus should be on the front sight. That's for a perfect shot at long distance. The next fundamental that we need to concern ourselves with is trigger control. Trigger control is where most people have problems because as you press the trigger, it tends to move the pistol from side to side. We need to make sure that when we press the trigger, we press it straight to the rear, continual pressure, until that pressure is enough to make the pistol fire. If we press to the right or to the left or unevenly or whatever, you can see the pistol moving as that pressure on the trigger is applied. That will translate into a missed shot or a misplaced shot. So again, pressure on the trigger straight to the rear until it's enough to make the pistol fire. When the pistol fires, there's going to be some movement of the slide, reloading, ejecting the fired case, and so on and so forth. We need to hold the trigger to the rear on recoil so that we don't lose contact with the trigger finger on the trigger. If we lose contact with the trigger finger on the trigger, it's going to be more difficult for us to fire a follow-up shot. The positioning on the trigger may be different, and that second shot may miss the target completely. So we want to hold the trigger to the rear on recoil. The last fundamental is follow-through. Follow-through means staying on the trigger, regaining a sight picture back on target as soon as a shot is fired, and finally resetting the trigger and getting it ready for the next shot. Marksmanship fundamentals apply in all situations. Now, we may not need to focus as hard on them, and they may not need to be as perfect for a very close-in shot as they would be for a distant shot, but the fundamentals are nonetheless there. The bottom line is this: you got to get the gun pointed in the right direction, you got to hold it there while you fire the shot, and you got to keep it there in case you need to fire a second shot, or a third shot, or a fourth shot, as it were. And the fundamentals allow you to do that in a very easy, very repeatable fashion. Okay, let's talk about ready positions. Think of your ready positions as the blades in a Leatherman tool. They serve different functions for different needs. In the old days, there was only one ready position. It was this one right here, the low ready. And you had guys moving around like this in situations that maybe this wasn't the best way. But today we know better. When we're talking about having an adversary in front of us here, we're either drawing because we've already made up our minds this guy needs to be shot because he's producing his weapon or threatening us or whatever the case is. And in that case, we draw straight to the target and fire. There are times, however, when that's not as clear cut, and it's a little bit grayer area, if you will, and there's doubt whether you need to shoot or not. But this man has scared you enough that you went to guns in the first place. So we want to be, number one, prepared to fire, and number two, we want to convey the right message to him. If we present down here, let's say, and we're negotiating with someone in essence, this conveys reluctance to shoot. Okay, it conveys that the idea, oh, please, Mr. Bad Guy, don't make me shoot you. On the other hand, if I were to point in like this and take an aggressive stance, this conveys eagerness. Now, if I have an adversary there, I suspect that he would be more inclined to give up and run away or do whatever it is that I want him to do if I'm pointing in and I'm giving him the idea that I'm going to be a little bit more eager rather than reluctant. So our ready positions for contacting an adversary have one thing in common. They are different steps along the presentation, and they all have the muzzle oriented right on target. The first one, contact ready, it replicates the draw, basically, and I'm pointing in just out here like that. Now, you'll notice that my trigger finger's not on the trigger. I haven't made a conscious decision to shoot yet, but I am pointed in. I'm pointed in roughly at the lower part of the body, low enough that I can see the hands, low enough that I can see any reaction that he might have to my commands or orders. Now, this is a good ready position. There's one weakness. If the distance is a little tighter, I might be giving him access to my pistol. So what I want to do is I want to compress it in a little tighter. The clever name for this, compressed contact ready. All right? It's the same as this, except that I'm bringing it a little bit tighter so that he doesn't have access to my pistol. As things get more compressed and the intervals get shorter and tighter, this may not be enough. I may need to bring the pistol back here, and at this point I need to bring my left hand into play to strike, deflect, whatever the case is. So these three positions, contact ready, compressed contact ready, and close contact ready, are all for the contact of an adversary, giving him orders, negotiating with him, whatever the case is. They also apply when we're clearing a structure, moving through a house, whatever the case is. In this case, the muzzle would be pointed at wherever we perceive a threat might be. There are other types of ready positions. The thing you need to remember, these three that we just covered, they're for when you have an adversary right there in front of you and a fight is pretty much imminent. There are ready positions that may work better for movement. For example, moving in an area where there are a lot of people, moving in a very compressed environment, moving amongst family members or team members or something of that nature where I don't necessarily want to be covering them with a gun muzzle. We certainly want to avoid that if we can. Sometimes it's unavoidable, but if we can't avoid it, we certainly want to do that. The best ready position for movement is called sul, S-U-L. Sul is Portuguese for south, and there's a whole history of how that ready position came about. But in any case, it puts the pistol in this situation right here. Just to give you some index points, the support hand flat up against where the solar plexus is, the primary hand up against the support hand, the slide along the axis of where the knuckles are. Thumbs, I like to keep my thumbs together. Some guys cross their thumbs this way. That's fine either way. This gives me a pretty good index to punch out to the target from here. It's a very quick response, right from here, straight out and back, straight line. Now, this is a controversial position. Some guys don't like it. I think primarily it's an issue of they didn't invent it, so they didn't like it. But it's a good position. It allows me to move in a 360-degree environment without covering anybody with the gun muzzle that I don't want to cover. The second thing it does is it presents a very low-profile position. As I'm standing here from the side, if I was wearing a dark shirt or whatever the case, somebody looking at me from the side may not even realize that I have a pistol in my hand. The advantage of that is that It possibly could avoid a mistaken identity shooting. There's a lot of people carrying guns all over the country here. I think that's a good thing. But there's also the possibility that somebody may want to be a good Samaritan. There's maybe some law enforcement officer that might be a little bit more aggressive. And if you're standing out here in a very high-profile ready position, such as the traditional guard or traditional low ready, there's the risk that there may be shots fired and questions asked later. On the other hand, if you're here in this position, they may not even see that, and it gives you an opportunity now to holster and deal with whatever you need to deal with in a very low-profile manner. So this ready position would be for movement, for covering ground from one point to the other, specifically when you don't have an adversary right there in front of you. The third type of ready position that we like to work with are covert readies. Covert ready means that the pistol's in your hand, but nobody knows about it. We are conditioned almost in the training community to always make a fast presentation. There are times when you may want to get the gun in your hand, but keep it low profile and quiet. The human eye is drawn to motion, and if you have a very fast motion like this to your pistol, and there's a bad guy there, he may pick this up and shoot you before you have a chance to do anything. On the other hand, if you present in a very low profile manner and you conceal the fact that you've got your pistol in your hand, for example, you may be able to avoid them even realizing that you're drawing. This ready position, covert ready number 1, let's say, this is used by a lot of urban law enforcement people when they're walking up to suspicious vehicles. You can't point a gun at everybody that scares you, so this allows you to be a little bit more ready without having to deal now with internal affairs and all those other things that may come up in this type of situation. This is one. Another type of covert ready position is simply bringing the gun to the other side of your body and laying this hand over the front here. You could call this the Jack Benny ready, if you will, and it allows you to keep the pistol in your hand, occluded from somebody that might be standing over there, but nevertheless a little bit more ready than if it was in a holster, under a jacket, and so on and so forth. And finally, a variation of Sewell, you can simply take your hat off or a newspaper or something of that nature and just kind of cover the pistol up like this, and you appear to be in a very submissive posture, but in reality, you're in a fighting posture and a ready to shoot position. So those are the ready positions. They allow us to be a little bit off sides in the event that we're faced with a fight. Okay guys, let's talk about the draw. Now, normally we'd be drawing from concealment, but you need to see what I'm doing with my hands, so we're not wearing a cover garment. The draw is intended to do one thing: get your muzzle on target as soon as possible. When you are first learning the draw as a beginner, there are 5 or 6 steps or whatever, because you need to make sure that your draw is not going to end up with you shooting yourself or something. Drawing a loaded gun from the holster is inherently dangerous, so we need to be careful with what we do. Now, we're making assumptions in this production that you guys have received basic training and so on. If you haven't, it's important that you get basic training on how to draw, how to do it safely, before you start working with these drills that we're going to show you. Now, the draw that we're gonna work with is a 4-part draw. The first part, your hands could be wherever they are. What I suggest you guys do is don't start out with your hands in the gunfighter posture. You see this a lot at the traditional modern technique shooting schools. They start out like this because they got to beat the clock and all this sort of thing. Don't do that. Start with your hands in whatever position they are normally. You can start out with your hands in your pockets or hands behind your back or whatever the case is in some sort of a natural position. Or you can just have them hanging down by the sides of your legs. Something natural, in other words. Remember, if you were expecting the fight, you'd have your gun in your hand to begin with. So here we go. Starting off with your hands at your sides. The first move that I want you to practice is the support hand is going to be coming up to the midline of the body, around where the sternum is. The primary hand is going to be accessing the pistol this way. So this is move number one. All right, now you notice a couple of things. My hand is not down here. It's not flat up against my belt buckle or anything else. It's in play. If my adversary were up close, I could be hitting him. I could be moving him. I could be doing other things, even deflecting or covering. It's in play. It's not out of the way. Second thing is that it's up high. This pistol is going to be moving to the hand, and the hands together are going to be moving out toward the adversary. If my hand were down here or any other position, I'd have to drive my gun down to that position in order to make that intercept. So hand up high. Second thing is primary hand on the pistol this way. Now, a couple of things here. You'll notice that my thumb is flagged up against the back part of the pistol. There's a couple of reasons for that. Number one, with concealment holsters, they carry up tight up against the body as they should. All right? That way they're not going to be seen. When you have that situation, it's difficult to get your thumb all the way around in a perfect firing grip. It takes time. Gunfights are things that take place in 2 seconds. So anything you can do to save yourself some time is definitely something you'll want to do. All right, so thumb up high like this. The second thing that happens is as I start presenting this pistol, it gives room for this hand to come up and grab alongside the pistol so that I can maintain this 2-thumb forward grip that we're discussing. So, in any case, this is position number one right here. Okay? Think grip. The second thing that you're going to do from here is you're going to extend the pistol. You're going to join the hands together. Think from here if you were bringing this hand up and just kind of clapping the hands together. That's in essence what you're doing. So think grip, clap. Grip, clap. Okay? Now, we've got the midpoint of the draw here. In other words, your compressed contact ready. You can certainly do something else. You can add something here like this as well if you like. Okay? Sometimes when we're working a very fast draw, we blow right through here, but this is part of it. You can certainly stop the draw here if you have a very close contact adversary. All right? So we have grip, clap. The next thing, extend out to the target. So grip, clap, sights. Now, a couple of fine points. If you have a pistol such as a 1911 or a Browning or some sort of a weapon with a safety lever on it that has to be disengaged before you fire. Well, that would be disengaged as you clear the holster and you start moving the muzzle out to the target. So in the close contact position would be where you disengage it. By the time that the hands come together, that safety should be disengaged. All right? Second thing is from here out to the target. Now, look at my trigger finger. I'm not punching out, leaving the finger off the trigger, and then putting my finger on the trigger. I'm not putting my finger on the trigger, then driving out to the target. What I'm doing is, as I drive out to the target, my finger finds the trigger. So as I drive out to the target, my finger finds the trigger. What I want to do is I want to take up this free travel that we have here on the pistol by the time that I arrive on target. All right? It's going to save me about 1/10 of a second as well. So let's look at this presentation again. From here, in a very slow robotic method, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. If we were to smooth it up, simply move out to the target. It's a very directional draw. Think hand to the gun, gun to the target. Just like that. Okay? From a frontal view, same thing. Just like that. All right? Now, something else that we need to talk about here is the holstering process. I hear all sorts of reports from other training venues and so on that guys end up shooting themselves and so on. Invariably, this happens on the reholstering. What happens is guys get in a hurry, and they're out here, they're doing their drill, they're shooting, and so on and so forth, and they want to get back in the holster so they can do the drill again, and they come back here and they'll do something like this. All right, either the finger on the trigger or a T-shirt gets in the trigger guard or something of that nature. The thing you got to remember about this, no gunfight was ever won with a speed reholstering. It needs to come out quickly. You need to solve your problem quickly. But when you come back to the holster, you need to do it slowly, carefully. One gentleman that I know says it needs to go back in the holster reluctantly. So what we're talking about in terms of the holstering process, we're standing here, there's the adversary, we draw, we present, we fix the problem here, all right? Now, on the way back, first thing, trigger finger off the trigger. Second thing is the pistol's going to get depressed slightly. Now, we're going to be plugging in an after-action assessment as we progress through these drills, but for right now, just think lower the pistol slightly. We're going to bring the pistol back to close contact position, pause for an instant. We're going to find the holster with the gun muzzle. Notice my trigger finger's off the trigger, and I holster carefully. This hand is still in play while you're doing that. It's still out here in case I need to fight or do something else. It's still in play. If I need to come back out very quickly because I misjudged, I can certainly do that, and I've got this as a barrier between my adversary and I. All right? If you're using a pistol such as again, 1911 or a Browning, something with a safety lever on it, you engage that safety lever at the point that you make the decision, I'm going back to holster. So I've shot, I've lowered my pistol, I've assessed, I've done everything I need to do, and at this point I think I need to go back to holster now. That safety lever gets re-engaged. If you've got a double action pistol such as a SIG or Beretta or one of those, at this point is when the decocking levers are engaged and that hammer is decocked. Then you come back to this position here, this hand's still in play, find the holster and holster. Okay, we're going to start shooting now. The first thing I want to talk about before we get into this is weapons check, loading and unloading. This is an area where a lot of mistakes and mishaps take place, so best to learn a right way to do it. First, weapons check. When you present your pistol, the first thing you want to do is check the chamber to verify what you have. Okay? The way we do this is if I was doing it left-handed, I would take my thumb, anchor it in this area here, the grasping grooves, rotate my hand over the top, my fingers off the trigger, I crack the slide open, take a look inside, verify what I have. If it was loaded, I could just go back to holster and carry on with whatever my mission was. If I need to load it for a drill or in the beginning of the day before I step out into the world, I take a magazine, I insert it, seat it into the pistol. Okay, I come back over the back of the pistol, work the slide this way, allow it to go forward under its own power. Again, take another look, verify that I have what I think I have, take a look at the magazine, and I'm good to go. Okay? All right, now, let's take a look at this target here and how we're going to address this. Again, you want to get in your fighting stance. You need to have balance, mobility, and stability. So all those three things. Doesn't matter what it looks like as long as you have that. The center line of my body is going to be oriented on the target. If I were going to be pushing a car, for example, I wouldn't be standing sideways, would I? I'd be facing wherever it is that I want to direct my force to. That's what I'm going to be doing in this situation here. All right? So nice and comfortable. Again, remember the points of the draw. Grip, collapse sights, directional draw straight out to the target. What I want to do also is I want to arrive on target in a way that I can shoot the minute my gun stops. So I'm not going to try and force the pistol on target. I'm going to arrive on target under control. Okay? So here's the first shot. Okay? Again, I'm not trying to go fast. I'm trying to be smooth. I'm trying to develop a directional draw. Out of the holster, straight to the target. Okay? Again. Okay? I'm picking up a pretty good sight picture there and a very, very well-controlled trigger press. Okay? We'll do one more. All right, you notice this target here. It's the same size as a human adversary would be, number one. Second thing is it reminds your subconscious mind that you're shooting at another human being who's trying to kill you. It's not just a piece of paper with lines and camouflage and whatever on it. It's a picture of the bad guy. In terms of shot placement, what we're looking at is we want to get up into this upper chest area. Now this is kind of an interesting target. It's got some outlines and so on to the organs, but you're not going to have that on a real human being. What you are going to have is a representation of what the upper chest is, and that's where you want your shots to go. This is where all the important stuff, heart, lungs, aorta, all that good stuff. You're going to get the most result for the minimum number of shots fired up in this area in terms of the body. That's where we want to place the shots. One question we get a lot in our close-range gunfighting classes is how many times do we shoot our adversary? Well, the easy answer is as many times as it takes, but for training purposes, we need to define that a little bit more. Oftentimes, in some schools, you'll have a class where they teach you to draw. For example, you'll fire a couple of shots, just 2 shots, drop down automatically to a guard position, and then you go back to holster and so on. The problem with that is that what if those 2 shots weren't enough? People are very resilient, especially dedicated opponents, and 2 shots may not be sufficient. So we want to be prepared to always have an extra follow-up shot. Generally speaking, what we want to practice is at least 2, but not limit ourselves to 2. So between 2 to 4 or 5. 5 is okay too, to the body. Okay. Now, anytime along that string of fire, if you realize, hey, my body shots aren't working, or he looks like he's got armor on, or any of the number of different situations that might create a bulletproof opponent, if you will. You can find other targets to shoot, and we'll talk about that later. For now, what we want to do is we want to practice firing multiple shots, so always have a second shot to go. I like to practice 3 shots or 4 shots, and that's what we're going to practice now. When we get into this multiple shot business, we need to really make sure that we've got a good trigger reset. When guys go wrong firing multiple shots, what happens is they lose contact with the trigger on recoil. So in other words, they'll fire the first shot, their finger flies off, the pistol recoils, it gets back on target, and now it comes back and they realize that they're late, they have to fire another shot, and they'll come up and they'll slap the trigger. We want to control the trigger, we don't want to slap the trigger. So I'm going to fire a number of multiple shots here, that way you can see how it all works together. Okay. I'm going to fire 2 shots initially. What I want you to look at is, number 1, how the pistol leaves the target on recoil briefly, comes back on target, the trigger's reset, the next shot is fired. Okay? Let's look at that again. Okay? You can fire as fast as you need to. If you need to fire 3 shots, it's the same thing. You're going to have a separate sight picture for every shot, and you're going to have a sight picture at the end. So if I fire 2 shots, you're going to have 3 sight pictures. If you fire 4 shots, let's say, you're going to have 5 sight pictures. All right, let's look at this again. Okay, trigger's held back on recoil. I reset it. I've got my sight picture. I fire again. I get back on target. I reset, and so on. Okay, now you notice on this target, the group of the shots is pretty tight, about the size of a fist in the upper chest, which is what we want. We were firing from a little farther away than we are here. When we get closer, and we'll see that when we start working with the force on force, the tempo of events picks up considerably. And we have to keep up with that tempo of events, otherwise we're going to fail in our mission. So when things get closer as they are here, we have to compromise a little bit on the perfection of marksmanship. We have to compromise a little bit on our stance, and all the things that we had back here, the luxuries that we had back here because we had time, we may not have them in this situation here. The thing that you need to remember is that just because one of your shots goes a little low or a little high or whatever, it doesn't matter that much. All right. Ideally, all our shots would be in the upper chest, but if we have a shot that goes a little bit outside of that zone, it's still going to be good for you. Remember, we're talking about putting bullets into our adversaries. Anything that your bullets touch is good for you and bad for him. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to fire from this position here. Now, this is the compressed contact ready that we talked about earlier. All right. It's a midpoint of the draw. It's where the hands come together. Now, I can fire from here. Here, I don't see my sights at all. I see the top of the slide superimposed on target, and I can fire from here a few times. The shots are going to be a little bit low. They're not going to be as perfect as they normally are, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. These are just prelude shots. I'm going to continue on with this. This was just to show you that, yes, you can fire from here, and yes, you can get some pretty decent hits. Okay? Okay, the main idea here is that if you started out extended and you need to compress from here, this is still a viable firing position. But also on the way out, if on your draw you realize this guy is a lot closer than I anticipated because whatever, he closed the ground faster than I thought he would, or whatever the case is, I could get to this position here. As soon as the hands come together, I know my muzzle's on target, all right, because I can feel it. and I can see the top of the slide superimposed on the target. I can certainly start firing here as I extend to the target. So I can start firing here, for example, all right, as I extend to the target. Now the way that looks dynamically from the draw is basically I'm standing here like this. As soon as my hands come together, I'm going to start working on the trigger. All right. If you look at the target, the shots aren't perfect compared to what they were earlier, but nevertheless, anything that your bullets touch on him is good for you and bad for him. As things get a little closer here, we can't extend the gun out to the target because in essence what you're doing is you're allowing him to disarm you. So what we have to do is we have to fire from a more compressed position, what we call close contact. And the left hand has to be involved in some form of combatives. Now, we're looking at just the gun side of the equation here. So just understand, this could be a strike, this could be a deflect, it could be some sort of a flinch, it could be anything. We're getting it in play up here near the target just to get you accustomed to firing from retention and having the other hand in play. Okay, so basically we're standing up here. This is within arm's reach. There's no way that I could possibly present my pistol and fire here safely without the adversary having the opportunity to disarm me. So I'm going to be drawing to this position here, and this is going to be my firing point. My other hand would be involved up here, striking, moving, whatever the case is. So for now, I'm just going to place it up on the target here. Now, you notice with the close contact, the muzzle is angled slightly down. That's important. We need to do that. If I angled my muzzle high, you see that we're going to run into a conflict here between bullets and hand. Not something that we want to do. So we angle it low. We understand our first few shots are going to go to the lower body. That's perfectly okay. These aren't going to be the only shots that we would fire here. So again, from here. Now you notice nice solid fighting stance, knees are bent, weight is aggressively forward, muzzle canted down slightly. Index points, the thumb and the magazine of the pistol right here indexed up against your ribs. Okay? This way, if I'm looking in this direction, I know my muzzle's pointed over there. If I were looking over there, I know my muzzle's pointed in, and so on. So, from here, okay? Again, shots are going to be going to the lower body. It's a necessity because the support hand is in play, involved in some sort of combatives. Okay? Now, from the draw, again, if my adversary were this close, where would my hands be? Would I have them in my pockets or something like that? No. They'd be in play up here somehow, creating a barrier to keep this individual off me. At some point I realize I need to go to guns. Okay, this hand's going to come up and it's going to be involved up here somewhere. Okay? And again, those shots are going to be going to the lower body. Eventually I would be moving and so on and so forth in order to follow up with other shots. Okay, so far we've got a pretty good presentation of the fundamentals. Let's look at how this applies in an actual gunfight. Statistically, we know that these things happen a lot closer than the mythical 7 yards that we hear about all the time. In fact, within about 10, 12 feet is where the majority of these things take place. The second thing is that the timing involved means that if you stand your ground and he goes to guns and you go to guns at the same time, that the chances of you ending up with a tie is pretty good. A tie is not what we want. We want to shoot him without ourselves being shot. It becomes pretty obvious, both through personal experience and through the force-on-force drills that we do, that the secret to success is not to try and stand here and hold our ground and outdraw this guy, because we're just not fast enough, especially when we're talking about adding a concealing garment and so on. So what we need to do is we need to get off the spot that we're standing. We need to move. Again, I refer back to what we were talking about earlier with the issue of safety, that invariably at some point in your training career, there was some guy on the line that maybe was a little bit goofy with his gun. He had a malfunction, and he turned around to ask somebody to help him. Invariably, everybody does what? They get out of the way because they don't want that gun muzzle to cover them. That's basically what we're talking about here. We're going to get out of the way. We're standing here facing our adversary, whether he's got a contact weapon or whether he's drawing a firearm or whatever the case is, it's going to come straight to us. That's the way human beings attack, whether with a gun or with a stick or with a knife or whatever. Straight to us. So what we need to do is we need to get off the spot that we're standing. We are going to work this in a progression so that we get accustomed to moving. The first thing we're going to do are some drills that basically just deal with walking and shooting. Sometimes you'll go to a training school and they'll have a special class on shooting on the move. And they'll have you walk sideways and doing all sorts of artificial things. I don't believe in that. I think that we have all been walking around for many, many years. We know how to walk. We point our feet where we want to go and we start moving. And that's what we're going to do here with the gun. We don't need to relearn something we already know. All we need to do is we need to add the gun to a skill we already possess. The things to remember are, number one, keep moving. If you're moving, you're difficult to hit. Second thing is to keep your muzzle on the target, whether you're moving to the right or to the left, on an oblique, to the rear, whatever the case is, you keep your gun pointed on target. And you don't deviate from that. And the third thing is you don't stop. If you have a malfunction or you need to reload or whatever the case is, you don't stop. You keep moving. Now, as we are moving to the right, for a right-handed shooter, I'm right-handed. If there's any left-handers watching this, you just basically, you flip the instructions. What I'm saying for a right-hander applies for a left-hander on the other side. As we're moving to the right, I'm going to have my gun oriented on target. It's going to be very easy to maintain a two-handed grip. As I'm moving to the left, it's going to become increasingly difficult. Now, I need to make a decision. What's more important, keeping both hands on the gun or getting out of the way of his attack? I tend to believe that getting out of the way of his attack is more important. We should be able to fire one-handed as accurately, as fast, and as under control as we do with two hands. If you don't, that's a skill that you need to develop. Okay? Anyway, let's look at this drill. Basically, what I'm looking at is as I'm standing here facing my adversary, I want to imagine a clock face around me. I have the 12 o'clock straight ahead. I have the 3 o'clock to my right. I have a 9 o'clock to my left. I have a 1 o'clock over to the right hand angle and the 11 o'clock over here to my left, and subsequently the 5 and the 7. We'll talk about moving straight back in a few moments, but for right now we want to avoid this issue about moving straight back or moving straight forward. The first one that we're going to work on is just the 3 o'clock and the 9 o'clock. Initially, I'm not going to shoot. I'm just going to walk and keep my muzzle pointed on target so that you know exactly what it is that we're talking about. Okay, so I bring my pistol out. I start moving to the 3 o'clock. I keep my muzzle on target. I change directions. You notice I go with one hand because it's difficult for me to maintain a two-handed grip while I'm moving. Okay, so I bring the other hand back, get it out of the way, and I punch the pistol out with one hand. Okay, we're going to start shooting here as I move to the left. I start moving toward the 9 o'clock. I have my muzzle on target. I know I can get hits from here. We repeat that drill, moving to the 1 and the 7, the 11 and the 5, and so on. Again, the same dynamics. You want to keep the muzzle pointed on target. You want to keep it on target as you're moving. When you feel tension or binding start with your two-handed grip, perfectly okay. Let go, bring the other hand back in, and get that muzzle pointed on target. Keep moving, keep shooting, and you continue with the drill. Let me reload here, and we'll do the other side. Okay, same idea. This time I'm going to be moving to the 1 o'clock and then moving back toward the 7. So in other words, advancing on an angle, retreating on an angle. Okay, there's my adversary. I get the gun pointed toward him. I start moving toward the 1 o'clock. I keep the muzzle pointed on target. I move back. I keep the gun pointed on target. I move forward. I keep the gun pointed on target. I continue. Same idea, this time the 11 o'clock and the 5 o'clock. Again, as I'm advancing, I'm already moving off to my left. It's going to be difficult to maintain a two-handed grip, so I'm going to go with a single hand. As I withdraw, I can keep both hands on the pistol. Okay, I'm on target. I'm moving to the 11 o'clock. I go one-handed. I withdraw to the 5 o'clock. I go two-handed. Advance one-handed, retreat two-handed. Advance, withdraw. Advance, withdraw. Okay, basically what ideally in a perfect world we'd have a group the size of your fist in the upper chest. On the move, your accuracy is not going to be as good as it's stationary, but again, the idea is to shoot and not be shot. And we can see that even though we were moving on the 3 o'clock and the 9 o'clock line, the 1 and the 7, the 11 and the 5, we're still able to maintain a pretty respectable sized group in the upper chest where all the important stuff is, while maintaining movement, including a couple of malfunctions, as a matter of fact. So it's not hard to do. The thing is, you have to remember, you already know how to walk, you already know how to shoot. Put those two together and you'll have an unbeatable combination. Okay, let's build up on that drill that we just practiced. When we did the drill, it was a very mechanical sort of movement on a straight line and so on and so forth. You've got to remember that when we're on a firing line working with live fire weapons, we've got to compromise a little bit what we can do in the interest of safety. When we get into the force-on-force training, there's no limit to where we can move because the result of a mistake is not going to be a serious injury or death. Whereas here, if I was moving in an uncontrolled manner, or not uncontrolled manner, but maybe in a less concern about safety, the potential for mishap is greater. So when we're working live fire, we need to contain the number of steps and the direction and so on and so forth. What we're going to do is we're going to take the drill that we just learned and we're going to apply it from the draw. We're going to limit to one angle. We're going to move offline, draw, fire, and then we're going to stop there. Okay, so we'll work on the 3 o'clock and the 9 o'clock line to start out. Again, here's my target. Okay, I'm starting here like this. I'm going to be moving in that direction. Now, as I start here, my hands could be in any position that they need to be. If I were to need to move to my right, how would I do that naturally? I would simply take my right foot, I'd step off in this direction, my toes would be pointing in the direction I want to go, and that's where I would go. All right, so that's basically what I'm going to do. There's my bad guy. I'm going to move off in this direction on the draw. Okay, and I holster. Basically 2 or 3 steps. Now you notice I'm not trying to time my shots with my steps. I'm simply moving and shooting, and I let my body figure out what it needs to figure out. Moving off to the left, it's the same thing. We learned from the previous drill that sometimes when we're moving to our support side, maintaining a two-handed grip is very, very difficult. So it's acceptable to simply go one-handed. Again, I'm standing here. There's my adversary. I'm going to be moving off to the left. My left foot starts moving first, and I start walking in this direction as I draw the gun. So here I go. Hands from here. All right? And I can repeat that toward the 1 o'clock and the 11 o'clock and so on and so forth. So if I'm standing here, I want to move off in this direction. There's my bad guy. Okay? Or off in the other direction to the 11 o'clock. Okay, next one to the 5 o'clock, moving toward the rear. And the 7 o'clock. Okay, we've developed a pretty good skill here, drawing and shooting on the move and so on. What do we do now? Well, you always need to be prepared to keep shooting because you don't know how many shots it's going to take to put your adversary down. Let's assume, though, that your shots were successful for now. The fight may not be over. When real human beings are shot, they don't fly back or explode or do any of these things they do in the Hollywood movies. Generally what happens is you'll get some sort of a flinch, something kind of like that. If you've ever been shot with a paintball unexpectedly, that's sort of the reaction that you get. And then one of 3 things will happen. They'll either fall down, which is good, that means it worked. They'll keep fighting, which means it didn't work, or they'll turn and run away. What we are concerned with primarily here is when your initial shots did work and they did in fact fall down. If they turn and run away, well, that's a matter of the legalities wherever you happen to be operating, what you can do then. And if they keep fighting, well, you know the answer to that one too, right? So assuming that you shot them and they've fallen down, you need to do several things in order here. You need to stay focused in the fight. One of the biggest mistakes that I see students do is they'll be out here, they'll draw, bang, bang, they'll shoot, and right away they go back to holster. They figure, hey, the drill's over, let's get ready for the next one. Don't do that. You want to maintain your fighting focus. The Japanese call it zanshin, and in essence, it means lingering focus, something along those lines, and that's what we want here. We want to stay focused in the fight, at least for a little while, because it may not be over quite yet. Now, the first thing we need to make sure of is that the adversary did in fact fall down. So we need to stay focused on him for just a moment. It doesn't take a half hour of examining him to figure out whether your shots were successful or not. You're going to know right away, but you need to stay focused on him. So we need to verify that he in fact is out of the fight. The next thing we need to do is we need to start looking around for other adversaries, because more often than not, there are other adversaries in the wings there waiting to get into the fight. In the majority of my confrontations when I was on the job, there were more than one adversary. It doesn't mean necessarily that they were all involved in the fight, but they were there waiting. Some were involved in the fight, some maybe not. The next thing in line, we've got 2 so far. Make sure your adversary is down. Make sure he doesn't have any friends that are coming to help him. Number 3 is make sure that the area behind you is clear. Check your 6. It doesn't take an expert in tactics to figure out that you are more vulnerable from your 6 o'clock than you are from straight ahead. So if there's going to be a second adversary or a third adversary, it's possible they may come up from behind. So we need to have something in place to address that. Number 4, we need to make sure that our weapon is still operational. We're doing that all throughout, but we're just being a little bit more aggressive at this point. Now you notice that number 1, we make sure that our adversary is down. Number 2, we make sure he doesn't have any reinforcements coming in. Number 3, we make sure that our back is clear. At this point, it starts appearing that the fight is over. So we start thinking now a little bit closer in. How's our weapon? Can we still stay in the fight if we need to? And we'll talk about that when the time comes. And the final thing is you want to do a self-check real quick to make sure that you didn't get hit yourself. It's quite possible, and I'm aware of it happening on a number of occasions where a good guy received a gunshot in the middle of the fight, but he was so amped up and so up on the adrenaline that he didn't realize it until later. Anytime a bullet hits our body, we're going to bleed, and what the extent of that damage is, we don't know. So we want to just do a last final check at the end. In the event that we've taken a hit, we can take care of that. Okay, let's talk about this after-action assessment, how it works out on target. This is going to be just a dry drill. We're not going to fire, just to give you an idea. All right, now I've moved offline. I've shot, and for sake of this study, the adversary's fallen down. So I follow him down. I'm looking at him over the top of my pistol. Now you notice my pistol is not down here. Okay, I don't want to get you guys in the habit of shooting 2 and dropping down to the guard, because if I need to fire again, I've got to travel all the way back up to the target, and that takes time. So I lower it slightly just so I can see over the top of the pistol. All right. Byproduct of that is that if I've had some sort of a malfunction here, the gun has stopped working or whatever, I can see it in my peripheral vision, and I can take steps to fix it. All right. Now, as I'm standing here, I drop down, I look over the top of the pistol. I want to ask myself, while I'm doing the physical action, mentally, I want to ask myself, did I hit him? Did it work? So I'm engaging the brain as well as the hands. The brains will remind the hand what the hand's supposed to do. The hand will remind the brain, and so on and so forth. So, did I hit him? Did it work? If the answer is no, you've got a few more shots at him. Next thing, does he have any friends? What I want to do is I want to keep my pistol on target. You notice my trigger finger is on the index pointing off the trigger. I check to the left, back on my target. I check to the right, I get back on my target. I check my immediate area first because I'm taking a gamble here. If there's danger, it's probably up in this area as opposed to back here. Okay? So, number 1, make sure that my adversary is down. Did I hit him? Did it work? Number 2, check to the left, check to the right, make sure he doesn't have any friends. And I simply ask myself, does he have any friends? All right? Now, I've secured the area in front of me, my adversary, the area to either side of him, and so on. I may want to check the area behind me here, check my 6, as we say. Now, sometimes in shooting schools, we have students that'll do this, and they'll be worried about checking their 6, so what they do is they look over their shoulder, and they figure, okay, that's sufficient. But I ask you this, in the real world, you've just shot an adversary that came to kill you. You're going to be pretty adrenalized and agitated, and if you hear somebody sneaking up behind you, how do you think you're going to turn and address that threat? Probably that glance over the shoulder is not going to be sufficient. You're going to turn with a pistol in your hand, ready to engage, ready to strike these guys. Okay? Now, if you don't practice that, you're going to need to do that you're not going to have something in place to address that, and who knows what's going to happen. So we want to have a technique that addresses that. What we need to do, number one, we bring the pistol in close to us and we go to a sul position. Okay, so I'm going to turn and face the camera here as if the camera was my adversary. All right, so I'm standing here like this. Now, I've just checked him. He's down. I've checked. There are no other bad guys. I'm concerned about the area behind me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to sul position here. I start looking over my left shoulder. Okay, as I start looking over my left shoulder, you see that the upper body starts to displace to the left. My weight starts to move to the left. The weight frees up off my right foot. I start to look over my shoulder, and eventually that look turns into a step. I look around me, all the way to the left, all the way to the right. I make eye contact on where my adversary is, and I step back in toward him, and I present to contact ready. Okay, what I'll do is I'll move back over here on my target. Here, check left, check right, go to sul position, check 6, get back on my target. If I find myself I'm offset a little bit, nothing says I can't adjust. This whole thing is about freedom of motion. All right, so here I am. Next thing I need to do is do a weapons check. Well, very simple. I can see that the weapon's still in battery. I don't remember how many shots I fired, and neither will you in a gunfight. All I know is that I've used some ammo here, and the fight appears to be over, but I'm not sure, so I don't want to stand around with a half-loaded pistol. What I do is I conduct what we call a proactive reload. The old magazine comes out, I secure it, I get a new magazine, I insert it in the pistol, and I'm back in the fight. Okay? We'll talk about how that works in a few minutes here. The last thing that I want to do is I want to do a quick self-check, a first aid check, to make sure that I haven't taken a hit and not realized it in the heat of the battle. So what I want to do is I bring my visual focus in and I scan from wrist across my chest to the other wrist. So I'm going right wrist, right elbow, shoulder, across the chest, back out to the hands. Okay, and what I'm looking for obviously is some sort of blood or impact or whatever. Also down here on the deck, if there's blood there, it's probably from me and I need to address that. All right, now at this point, it appears the fight is over. I'm done. I'm going to go back to holster, and that's the end of the after-action assessment. Okay, let's take that drill that we just worked on and let's apply it from some different angles. The adversary isn't always going to come right to your front, right up the middle. We need to concern ourselves with the possibility that he might attack from the side, from the right or the left, or behind us, or in any combination thereof. So we need a set of skills that will apply what we need to do wherever we happen to be standing. In this situation, I'm standing here. I've got the adversary off to my left. Now, oftentimes we see students practice this. They do two things. Number one, they pivot right in place. Okay? Well, we already addressed that. The attack is coming this way, and if he gets to start it, even if you're very, very fast out of the holster, chances are you're not going to be fast enough to save yourself. So we don't want to get into this pivoting in place business. We want to get off the line of attack, number one. Number two is human nature would tell us that if we hear something over here, a threatening sound, or maybe we catch movement out of the corner of my eye, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to turn and we're going to face that threat. That's the way we're programmed. So we start off here, adversary off to the left. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to get eye lock or target lock on the bad guy, and we'll work our procedure from here. If you remember from the previous drill, what we did was we pointed our toes in the direction we wanted to walk, and we got going. We got the gun out. We got the gun working. We're going to do the exact same thing here, except that it's sort of a shortcut because we're already pointed in the direction we want to go. Generally speaking, if we have a choice between moving forward and moving backward, we always want to move forward because we know what's ahead of us. We don't know what's behind us generally. Okay? So basically, bad guy off to my left here. This is the way this will work. Okay. Standing here like this, maybe talking to a friend or doing whatever. I catch movement out of the corner of my eye, peripheral vision, or I hear something. I turn and look. There's my bad guy. I'm going to be walking in this direction, drawing my pistol, getting my gun on target as I move. Okay, so right from here. And we add the after action process, which we already learned. And we holster. Okay, so the process is exactly the same, except we start off from a different position. In this situation here, we'll have the bad guy off to the right. Okay, I'm facing in this direction. I catch movement out of the corner of my eye, hear something. Same concepts, guys. I get off the line of attack. I move in the direction my toes are pointed. I get my gun pointed on target. There he is. I move. Okay, simple as that. Again, it's a skill that you already have from prior training. Next situation is the bad guy might be behind you. Generally speaking, if we can, we always want to move into known territory and not the area behind us. I don't know what's back here. This bad guy might have closed the distance on me faster than I can keep track of what's going on. I don't know. So I always want to move, if I can, into known territory. That means stepping in this direction or in this direction. All right? Whether I go to the right or whether I go to the left, it depends on the situation. It depends on the environment around me. There's times when I can go left. There's times when I can go right. We need to be able to do both. All right, so I'm standing here doing whatever. I hear something behind me. I don't see anything because I don't have eyes in the back of my head. I hear something. I hear sound. I turn to look. There's my bad guy. You see that as I turn to look, I'm already, in essence, turning my body in a position where I can move. All right? So I see him over there. What I'm going to do now is I realize the attack is coming. I'm going to move in that direction as I present my pistol. Again, the idea is I get the gun on target and I keep it on target while I'm moving. So I start off here like this. I look over my shoulder. Whoa, there he is. Okay. After action, look around. Back on target. Old magazine out. New magazine in. And back in the holster. The other side of the package here is bad guy coming up off the right. I look, there he is, same kind of thing. I'm going to move off in this direction here. It's going to be difficult for me to keep both hands on the pistol, so I'm going to go one-handed. All right? So I'm standing here. I hear something behind me. I happen to look over to my right. There's the bad guy. I'm on the move. With these drills, wherever you happen to be standing, wherever the bad guy decides to attack you from, you'll be able to respond, get off the line of attack, get your gun on target, shoot him to the ground, as well as check the area around you and be aware of what's going on. Okay, let's talk about gun manipulations. There's two kinds, proactive and reactive. Proactive obviously means that it's something you do when you decide, it's expected, and it's done before there's an immediate need. Reactive means that you are responding to something that took place unexpectedly. When it comes to proactive gun manipulation, specifically what we're talking about is what some instructors call a tactical reload. I call it a proactive reload because it's more descriptive and it reminds you exactly when it fits in. The use of the proactive reload takes place when you think the fight is over. You've shot the bad guy, there's no more bad guys to shoot, and nobody else is shooting at you, and by all appearances, it seems the fight's over, and it's time for you to move on now. Leave this point of cover, or go run to your car, or call 911, or whatever the case is. But you don't want to do it with an empty gun. You don't want to do it with a gun that is partially loaded. The thing that you need to remember is that it's going to be virtually impossible for you to remember how many shots you fired in the middle of the fight. I never could, and the professionals that I've debriefed, trained, and talked with, they haven't either. Your gun is either working or it's not. You've either used up all your ammo or you haven't. At the end of the fight, you may be able to remember whether you're at the top half or the bottom half of the magazine, but that's about as good as it's going to get. What we want to do is we want to reload the weapon up to full capacity before we go and do anything else. Now, there are all kinds of shortcuts. I call them magic tricks with pistols and magazines that people do on a shooting range. The thing about training on a shooting range is that there is no idea in your mind that you're going to get killed in the next few minutes. So there isn't that adrenaline flowing through your system that you'll have at the end of a gunfight. Remember, you've just shot at your adversary. For many of you, probably the first time. You're going to be a little bit jacked up. You're going to have adrenaline flowing through your system. Your hands are going to be shaking a little bit. Now imagine with that physical state going on, you're now trying to juggle 3 magazines in a pistol or this sort of thing. Bad plan to begin with. Here's what I suggest you do. Keep it very simple. All right, you've just done your after action assessment. You're back on your target here. I need to get this pistol back up to full capacity. The first thing is that human nature is going to have you want to look at the pistol. So instead of keeping the pistol down here and having your eyes drawn to it, bring it up in front of your face where I can see what's going on with my pistol at the same time that I can see what's going on downrange. All right, so that's the first thing. Second thing is the old magazine is going to come out. You secure it on your body somewhere. Stick it in your pocket, down your shirt, wherever you want. It doesn't matter. Support hand is going to come back here, access the other magazine, insert it in the pistol. We're going to be putting it flat of the magazine well, rolling it into place, seating it briskly, and then now you're back on target. All right. At no point was there anything in my primary hand other than the pistol, and at no point was I trying to juggle 2 different magazines in my hand. The last thing you want to do, if you can, and it's secure, take that magazine you just secured in your pocket, put it back in your pouch. You're saving this because you're probably by yourself. You probably don't have 50 magazines on your body or 12 other guys that are equipped just like you backing you up. You're by yourself, and those 5 rounds that you just saved in this one magazine may be what decides whether you're going to win or lose the next confrontation that comes to you in the next few seconds. So let's look at it again. All right, I've just shot. I've done my after-action assessment. Everything is done to this point. I decide I need to reload this pistol. Bring the pistol up in here into your line of sight. This isn't a ready position or anything else. It's just a position where I can see the gun and see my battlefield. Old magazine comes out, secure it. I like to put it in my front pocket, but you can just as easily put it in your waistband or somewhere else if you like. I access the fresh magazine, I insert it in the pistol, seat it, and I'm back on my target right away. Okay? As I said, from here I can access this magazine, secure it, back in the pouch, ready for another reload in the future if I need it.
Whenever you're ready. Okay, now transferring the magazine from the pocket to the...
Next thing we need to talk about are unexpected occurrences with a pistol, such as running out of ammo, such as having some sort of a malfunction. Let's look at the dynamics of what's happening here. You've got an adversary in front of you. He's coming to kill you. He's either attacking you with a contact weapon, a knife, drawing his gun, whatever. It's an urgent situation. You just tried to shoot him and your gun didn't work. All right? Could be one of four possibilities. Actually, there's other possibilities, but let's look at four. It could be a failure to fire. Could be a failure to eject, or what some people call a stovepipe. Could be that you just ran out of ammo. All right? And you're now at slide lock. It could be that you had a what some people call a feedway stoppage, or a double feed, or a failure to extract. Those are four possibilities that you can fix in the middle of a fight very, very quickly. There are other possibilities that require the attention of a gunsmith. Your gun broke, basically. You don't have the time to figure out whether it was your firing pin or your extractor or whatever the heck is the matter with it when you've got somebody attacking you trying to kill you. You need to either fix the problem or go to a secondary weapon and finish the fight. Let's look at these four possibilities. The first one, failure to fire. All right. Now, we set that up in training by keeping the chamber empty and a magazine in place. What we're talking about is coming up to fire and having that situation take place. In other words, it's just as if you were dry firing or dry practicing. It could be because of a number of reasons. The magazine maybe wasn't fully seated, and you had a situation like this while you were firing, and it didn't have a chance to pick up a fresh cartridge. It could be that there was a cartridge in the chamber that didn't ignite. Whatever the case, we're not concerned about why. All we're concerned about is how to fix it. So from here, the gun didn't work. Automatically, what you need to do, hit the bottom of the magazine, grasp the rear of the slide this way, and flip the weapon over to the right as you cycle the action. We flip the weapon over to the right because that's where the ejection port is. If I was left-handed and I was doing this drill, I would cycle that way. All right? Now, that's going to be pretty much the bread and butter malfunction clearance. Whenever you have an unexpected occurrence with a pistol, you're going to have some lag time. Remember, you were expecting that shot to go off and you were expecting your bad guy to fall down. That didn't happen. So there's going to be a little bit of lag time there. The second lag time is going to be when you're trying to figure out what to do about it. What we do is we take advantage of having one solution that covers most problems. Immediately when the gun fails to function, you conduct this maneuver that we just talked about, tap, rack, flip. Automatically, without decision, without analysis, other than, here we go, the gun didn't work, tap, rack, flip. That will solve two of the problems. It'll also solve this situation here, where we're simulating now, where you have a stovepipe, all right, or failure to eject, as they say. For this malfunction, the failure to eject, we have the same solution as before, as the failure to fire. Again, we take the support hand, we hit the bottom of the magazine, we grab the rear of the slide, we flip the weapon over to the right, and as you see, that clears the problem. It gets you back in the fight automatically. Okay, that's your first level response. Anytime the gun doesn't work, that's what we want to do. The next possible malfunction is a feedway stoppage, or some people call it a type 3, or a failure to extract, all kinds of names for it. Basically, you've got two pieces of brass competing for the chamber at the same time. Generally, what we have is the one that's in the chamber is a fired case that failed to extract, and we have a live round feeding up behind it. Again, all you know is the gun didn't work when you try to press the trigger. And you've got your adversary right there. He's bearing down on you. He's getting his weapon out. You don't have time to keep or start some sort of an examination of the pistol or anything else. The tempo of events is moving much too quickly. So, again, we have our immediate first solution. That one doesn't work. Now, what that tells us is it wasn't a failure to fire and it wasn't a failure to eject. So what we want to do is we want to go right into the secondary solution. We get in here, we pull this magazine out, we let it hit the ground. Now, you notice that as soon as that happens, the weapon goes into battery. Okay, I access a fresh magazine, I insert it in the pistol, I work the slide, and now I'm back in the fight automatically. I don't have to work with a lot of these different maneuvers that are taught in some other places. I pull this magazine out, I replace it, I work the slide, nice and simple. Now, I will put one caution in there. If you've got Berettas, 92F, and some 1911 models, you may have to lock that slide first because you may not have enough purchase to get that magazine out of there. Try it with your gun and see if this maneuver will work. If it doesn't, lock the slide open first, then carry on with the maneuver, and that should fix the problem for you. And this is not necessarily a malfunction, but we treat it as such because it is unexpected. In this situation, you've shot every round that's in your pistol, but the fight is still ongoing. In some circles, this is considered a tactical faux pas. I don't think it is. All that means is you were blessed with multiple adversaries and you had to use all the ammo in your pistol. What we need to do now is we need to reload this. We need to get back into fighting mode. Now, again, remember the dynamics. You're mid-fight. The bad guy's coming to get you. All you know is that pistol didn't work. You pressed the trigger, you didn't get that shot that you were expecting. What's our immediate solution? Right away, tap, rack. As we do that, we realize, because we can see into the chamber, hey, I'm out of ammo. I've eliminated all these other possibilities as if they matter. They don't really, because your next solution is going to be out with this magazine, insert a fresh one, over the top on the slide, and back on target. So the same solution that will clear a Type 3 feedway stoppage for you will clear this problem when you're out of ammo. Now sometimes when you're working this clearance, you may have run out of ammo, but your slide didn't lock open. It happens. You'll start out and you'll press and you'll get that solution. You'll make a tap and you'll realize, hey, my slide locked open now. You carry on with the same process that we have in place. If the tap rack doesn't fix it, you pull out the old magazine. In other words, rip, reload, and rack. Now, also what may happen sometimes is as you are reloading with a fresh magazine, automatically that slide may go forward just from the inertia of that inserting the magazine. Don't rely on it, because if you rely on it, it won't happen when you need it. Okay, so we'll set this up. We'll go through the drill. Press. It doesn't work. Here, out with the old. See, there it goes. That happened by itself. We don't want to rely on that. We want to work the slide over anyway, in the event that that doesn't happen when you need it to happen. In some circles, they'll be talking about using the lever here to drop the slide. I don't favor that because it's a very small lever, and your hand may be wet, you may be wearing gloves, you may be sweaty, might even have some blood on your hands. And the possibility of missing this is very great. Again, listen, what you can do on the square range on a perfect day with the sun high in the sky and all that, that's marginally interesting. What matters is what you can do on demand when everything's going wrong. Okay? That's why I don't like to rely on this. So, again, here, didn't work, out with a magazine, insert over the top, gross motor skill. You can always grab the slide, you can work the slide. It's a very easy thing to do, and it's not something you're going to forget. Here, you might miss that. And in a gunfight where things are happening quickly in tenths of seconds, missing that may cost you your life.